Creamer Media's Mining Weekly is speaking to Mark Kutafani, the CEO of Anglo American, which has just reported fantastic half-year results. Mark, it was great to see these results coming through, and also all the parts of your business that I'm speaking to, they're talking about you all working as a group to get renewable energy going. And I think that's so important. This renewable energy is at the back of everything. Tell us about this group initiative where you're working together.
By the end of next year, we'll have all of our South American operations on renewable energy coming into site. Now, remember, you've got hydropower and other sources in South America that we're able to tap into, but we've done all of our contracts now, so they're all renewable. In South Africa, we draw from Eskom, and what we've said is, look, what we'd like to do with the new developments we're looking at is put a solar power station around Mogalakwena, and we've said that we'd be open to supporting the building of wind power in the East Coast and the West Coast, additional solar units in the Northern Cape. And if we were able to connect that in with Eskom and make it part of the grid, we'd like to get some credit for that lower cost energy source. It improves the reliability. I think it does a good thing for South Africa because it increases its low carbon footprint, and it becomes part of the solution. Now, you'd look for energy providers, and I'm talking about infrastructure, funders, and colleagues in the industry to be part of a broader plan. And we want to talk to the government, and the government's been great in supporting those ideas. The recent announcement on the 100 megawatt approval to do it internally if you're generating your own power, we think that's great. But you also, to wheel energy around the country, you need to do that through Eskom. So we think there's an integrated approach that works out well for us as a company. It works for our local communities because we can help in our local communities. It helps Eskom in terms of a broader package and stability of the system. It improves cost structures and reduces carbon, which is key to all of us over the longer term.
And we've got that wonderful Northern Cape. We've got that hot, hot sun. And then I speak to the De Beers people and they tell me they're surprised at the wind out in Namibia. And I also think, well, is there water and water for the hydrogen?
Firstly, the point about wind is you don't need the same water that you do in terms of generating hydrogen. But for us, the renewable energy input is important from solar and wind. And then we use that energy to produce hydrogen for the trucks. So we get rid of the diesel. So you're not necessarily using hydrogen as the primary energy source. You're using it as the secondary product of the renewable to put it into a truck, which allows us, so we're using it as energy storage so that we can put it into mobile transport. So we've then got the trucks that have got a zero carbon footprint. So if I look at the trucks we have around the world with shovels, by just converting the trucks to hydrogen, we reduce our carbon footprint by another 15%. So it's a matter of how you put the whole system together. And that's, I think, the big difference here. And we found the government and colleagues in the industry in South Africa very open to this conversation. I think it's very exciting, and I think it can make a real difference for South Africa.
It seems like the whole world is looking at hydrogen at the moment. What do you think that will do to prices of hydrogen?
The cost of producing hydrogen as a primary energy source has to come down before it's competitive on a scale basis. We think it'll take till about 2030 before the price of hydrogen on that scale is competitive with fossil fuels. So again, how we're using it is we're using renewable, lower cost renewable sources to produce a smaller scale hydrogen in our plants and in our local communities. But on a broad scale, let's use water from the ocean, for example, and producing hydrogen on a larger scale, it'll take probably 7 to 10 years for it to become economically viable. But the technologies are there. The commitment from Air Liquide and companies like that who are with us on the Hydrogen Council is very solid. And the good news there is we think platinum and other PGMs will see another demand source as a consequence, but that will take a bit longer.
We get different colors of hydrogen and, We get the grey hydrogen, which we've been producing here in South Africa since 1950. We've got the blue hydrogen, we've got the green hydrogen. Which is the one that really points to zero carbon?
Green hydrogen's the key. So what you need to do is try and produce that initial energy source. You can use renewables and produce hydrogen, then you've got a zero carbon footprint energy mix, and that's what we're trying to achieve. And so from our point of view, that is the most cost efficient and effective for our operation. Now, on a broader scale, over time, you want a much bigger solution and look at maybe carbon sequestration and other technologies to go with the generation of large-scale hydrogen. But that's going to take a bit more time. But from our point of view, green hydrogen is a key that we can generate from our renewables, which gives us a low carbon footprint. So we achieve our scope 1, scope 2, zero by 2040. That's part of the mix for us, and that's where we're going as a company. And trying to connect it in with what everyone else is doing in South Africa through Eskom to make it a really viable country project as well.
Now, when it comes to smelting, particularly platinum group metals, people might be saying, hey, you're clearing the air of London with your platinum, but what about doing something in your smelters? Can you not use green hydrogen there instead of coal-fired power?
By doing the wind power west and east coast where you've got lots of wind, and some may say in some places there's lots of hot air as well that we could tap into in all countries. But the west coast and the east coast look to be the best places to produce energy using wind, and as you said, in Namibia and Botswana as well, by the way, in the high altitudes. And we use solar in the Northern Cape. And then you wheel it through Eskom, so we will produce enough energy from that configuration to power our smelters as well. What we're arguing is if we're the initiator and leader in the whole approach, we'd like to get the credit in terms of using that for our smelters across the globe. And there's more potential for capacity that others could invest in that would also help clean up their process as well. So we hope what we're doing can become a model that we can build off. Now, whether it's exactly as I described it, I don't know. Eskom and others will have to opine and look at if there are smarter ways of doing it. But we're right in the middle of it. We're being real. We're investing real money. We're going to build something at Mogalakwena as a startup. We want to be part of the future. We want to drive that. And we want to try and get as many people investing in the future that we can, because it's good news, I think, for South Africa, and ultimately is good news for all of us.
And just swinging back to those smelters, are you still thinking of pyrometallurgy, or could there be hydrometallurgy? What are we looking at there that could be cleaner and greener?
So in the short to medium term, the pyro processes are still the most effective, but some of the new leaching technologies and other higher pressure, higher temperature processes may be better in the longer term, but we've still got assets that we've got a life with that will work through to their natural life. And say by 2035, 2040, we may be looking at new other processes as well that are also more energy efficient. So we look at all of those things, and that's what Natasha has to continue to consider in making sure we're making the right calls for the long-term use in the platinum industry. And to be honest, it'll depend on how quickly demand grows. And if it really does go bumper and we're really struggling on capacity, then we will invest downstream to deliver into that demand. And that might take us into new technologies quicker. But that's sort of a chicken and egg. But certainly from our point of view, identifying these new industrial uses in platinum is part of the solution. And again, it helps South Africa being the world's largest supplier of the platinum group metals. Really significant potential.
That was Creamer Media speaking to Mark Kutafani, the CEO of Anglo American.